All right, I wanted to read out one of the blog posts that I've written. I wrote it today, actually. I wrote it this morning. It's titled 3 Writing Practice Approaches for Non-Native English Writers. I'm going to read it out and then I'm going to make comments. Okay, I'm going to explore this with you. So, English is the language of the internet, but it's not your first language. You and I have been unlucky because I'm Italian. However, you have enough English to write stories people can understand. Not perfect English, who has that anyway, but it's good enough. You can write. And there are 3 practice approaches you can adopt to improve. Number 1, practice only in private. You write stories, blogs, articles, or whatever you like, but you don't publish them. This will help you improve your writing, but writers don't write only for themselves. There's another word for those who do that. They're called journalers. No writer becomes a writer by hiding their work. Which rock star became a rock star without playing for a group of listeners? Which soccer player became a soccer player without playing for his fans? Which chef became a chef without cooking for her guests? So don't hide from the people who need to read you. This is an approach I don't recommend. Number 2, practice both privately and publicly. Combine the two. Gain confidence by writing in private, but also get your writing in front of people. It's a good approach. There's a question you need to keep asking yourself though. How will I know I'm ready to publish or submit my piece? I'll help you answer this question by asking you another one. Were you confident the first time you jumped off a cliff into the sea? Or were you terrified? At some point, you have to jump, even though you don't feel ready. So this approach is better than the previous one, but requires constant self-butt kicking. Number 3, practice in public. You write to publish. This is the scariest approach of all. And that's precisely why you should adopt it. I write and publish for my audience. Decide once and never revisit that decision. But I make grammar mistakes. Okay, work on those. Ask for help and don't expect your article to be accepted into the New York Times yet. But don't let language mistakes silence your voice. What's the minimum level of English you need to have before publishing something online? Answer: your current level. This is the approach I've adopted, and I highly recommend it. All right, so 3 writing practice approaches. Here we're talking about practice in public, practice in private, practice in public, and combining the two. So, if you only practice in private, if you want to become a better writer, but you never publish anything, well, how can you become a better writer? Because writers, as I say in this article, writers don't write for themselves only. I mean, do they write for themselves only? Stephen King, does he write for himself? I don't think so. I don't think the greatest writers we've had in the history of human writing, I don't think they published books for themselves. Also for themselves. When I published my book, Any Language You Want, I had a lot of fun writing it, but I didn't publish it for myself. I mean, these stories, yes, I had fun writing it. I reflected while I was writing, of course, because that's what writing is all about. But I published it for language learners. Okay? So if you're practicing in private, if you're only writing down things in your diary or on Google Document or on files on your computer, that's good because you're practicing, of course. And I say this will improve your writing because it's useful practice. But at some point, well, you're a writer. You need to show us what you wrote. Otherwise, what's the story here? So don't do this. I mean, I don't recommend it. I don't want to say don't do this, but I don't recommend it. Practicing both privately and publicly. Okay, this makes sense. Because if you think about a great piano player or a great musician, a great artist who performs on a stage in front of people, well, first they practice privately, they rehearse, they try new things, they try out new things, and they practice in their own room. But then they go on a stage and they practice in public. So they perform. So this makes sense. But the risk is that you don't publish, because not publishing is comfortable. How do you know when you're ready to publish? You need to ask yourself this question. So how much confidence do you need before you say, okay, no, this piece, now I'm ready to publish this. I'm ready to put it on Medium, on my blog, on Amazon if it's a book. Now it's ready for publication. How will you know it's ready? It's you might be tempted to keep re-editing, keep looking at your piece, keep you want it to be perfect. Unless it's perfect, you won't publish it. So I don't want to say it's a bad approach, but keep in mind that at some point you need to click. Yeah, you need to say, okay, boom, that's where it goes. I'm sending it out there into the world. No matter if it's perfect, it will never be perfect. I've already talked about this. I think for sure I wrote a post about this, about perfectionism. I'll put it in the description of this video or the podcast if you're listening to the podcast. But at some point, as I said, you need to kick yourself in the butt and say, okay, that's it. Doesn't matter if there are mistakes. Well, I cannot correct them, because if you can correct them, of course you can notice them and correct them, but who knows? Maybe there are mistakes, and that's okay. That's okay. All right? You're doing this to practice in front of people. And this is the third approach, practice in public. So you write to publish. You write for other people. It's scary because there will always be a voice in your head that tells you that you're a non-native English writer, so your grammar might be not the best, your vocabulary might be better, whatever, all the questions, all the voices that you hear in your head, which, by the way, also native English writers, they have those voices. Because writing is permanent. Once you upload something, once you write something, it's there for the people to see it. And it's not like speaking. Speaking, it's all in the air. You can backtrack, you can correct yourself, but when you're writing, well, in my book, I found two mistakes. I found two typos. what can I do? I mean, it's there. I did my best, and still, after 1 year, this book contains 2 mistakes. Imagine that. Am I going to unpublish this book? Of course not. Of course not. I'm a human, we're all human. And there is room for, there must be room for imperfection. So this is the scariest approach of all, I say, and that's why you should adopt it. That's why you should adopt it. One of my favorite people in the world, Derek Sivers, has a book called where is it? Hell Yeah or No. And he says, if it scares you, go do it, so it won't scare you anymore. Once you do something that scares you, then it won't scare you anymore. So the more you publish, the more you put stuff out there in public, for the public, then you get into it. You get into the habit of writing stuff for other people. I read a story on Medium of a writer from Hungary, and she said that she stopped writing in English because she saw she started publishing things online, and then she received some very bad comments on her English by native speakers, by the way. I think it was by from native speakers, but that's, I mean, what was I saying? I can't remember. Oh yes, yeah, the mistakes. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you make mistakes. The more you get into that, into a rhythm of, I'm not saying every day. I'm not saying that you have to publish one blog, one story a day. No, you don't have to do that. But whatever you write, if it's not for yourself, if it's not your journal, a journal entry, then put it out there and get into this routine of writing for your audience. And once you decide, I say, never revisit that decision. Never revisit that decision. Now, you have to be realistic as well. So if you know that your grammar isn't, I don't want to use the word perfect, but you know that your grammar isn't up to standard, up to your standards, okay? You know that your grammar is maybe not perfect. Well, then, would you submit a piece to the New York Times? Would you submit a piece to, I don't know, a famous magazine? No, you wouldn't, right? So don't expect your piece to go, to be in a major publication. But that's not the point. The point is that you get into the practice of publishing stuff for your audience, no matter how imperfect your writing is. And this is the approach that I recommend. I wrote this post because I was inspired by a conversation on LinkedIn. I think she was a teacher, and she said that there must be a minimal level of language proficiency before you put your work on someone else's eyes, in front of someone else's eyes. I disagree with that. I don't think there should be a minimal level of English for you to publish something. I don't think so. I think that your level is enough. That's the minimal level of English. And that's why I say, what's the minimal level of English you need to have before publishing something online? Answer, your current level. Your current level. Unless you cannot write anything, because you wouldn't be here, because you wouldn't be able to understand me. But your level of English is enough to put ideas out there into the world, because you want to create your own audience because you want to, because you're a professional and you want to create engagement with your work. You want to get visible. You want to sell something. You want to help other people. Whatever the reason, your current level of English is enough. This is the approach I've adopted, I say, and it's what I recommend. It's what I recommend. And I wanted to end this ramble with the thing that I said about jumping off a cliff. When I was writing this post, I remembered when when you do something scary. For example, I used to go to the sea in Sardinia, beautiful coast, on the cliff, on those rocks, and there was a point, a very high point, where we used to meet with other teenagers and jump off that cliff into the sea. Man, it was very scary, because it was high. And when you're there and you're looking down, it's always, you never feel ready. But at some point, well, you have to take that jump. And do it anyway, even though it's scary. Then once you've jumped off that cliff, you feel like a hero, and you want to do it again. So I would go back up and jump off again. So this is what I encourage you to do more. Do more of this. Publish more. Doesn't matter if your grammar isn't up to standard. It doesn't matter. You're not writing for the New Yorker or the New York Times or the BBC at this moment. Maybe in a couple of years you will. But for now, what you have is what you need to, is what you can put into practice to improve, always in front of your readers' eyeballs. I hope this is helpful. Let me know. Let me know if you disagree. Maybe you don't agree. Like that teacher. That teacher disagreed with me, and it's fine. For that teacher, there is a minimum level of English before you must have before publishing something in front of for other people. I disagree, as I've repeated many times in these 18 minutes. Oh, all right, long video. Okay, that's it. I hope this is helpful. Let me know in the comments or email me, get in touch. I'm always happy to have conversations with you. Bye-bye.